Hello there, welcome into the latest edition of the SID's Weekly Report. I'm Sports Information Director Daniel Gallegos, joined alongside Graduate Assistant Sports Information Director Jordan Bergeron. And Jordan, we talked last week about how we were kind of at the tail end of some seasons and the fall sports, and now the winter sports with basketball starting to come into the picture and to the forefront, and that was the case this past week. Women's basketball, the first of our basketball teams to kind of get a taste of season action. They went, women's basketball team went to North Texas, played in an exhibition game, and it's one of those when you're coming at it and you're playing ahead of division in an exhibition game, you don't really know what to expect. A lot of good things came out of that exhibition. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's right. I talked to Coach Rainbow, and he said his team went into that game expecting to win, and they almost did. They ended up going into overtime and losing by just 1 point. Shantae Nevitt nearly had a double-double with 10 points and 9 rebounds. And reigning newcomer of the year in the GAC, Chanel Miller, led with points with 26. We know Coach Rainbow plays a little different style of basketball, so to say, but overall, great showing for the Lady Muleriders.
Yeah, and it's one of those that I don't think maybe North Texas, maybe expected that type of a game, because, we talk about it coming up from our perspective, playing up, but when you're the Division I team, and you're bringing in a D2 or a D3 to play you, you're not really expecting that strong of a fight, and I think, Lady Muleriders definitely seeing a little bit of how Coach Rainbow wants to play from last year. This year brought in some more bodies, and we've talked a little bit about the key to them being able to play that type of game will be to stay healthy. And obviously, if you take a look at the stat sheet, several players played, and he's going to distribute the minutes, and so to try to keep some legs healthy and things of that nature. And so it's a very impressive showing for Lady Muleriders. In those exhibitions, you never know what you'll get. Sometimes, a blowout is, maybe to be expected, but with that kind of a showing on the road, almost coming away with the win, obviously some things to build upon, and a very positive note heading into this upcoming week whenever they get ready to play their first games of the year. Talk a little bit about where they're going this weekend and what they can expect.
This weekend they go to the Texan tip-off. It's at Tarleton State University. They will play Tarleton State first, and then they'll go on and play Angelo State next. So 2 big games. The way Coach Rainbow told me is that Tarleton State, they actually advanced a little bit in the NCAA tournament last year, so it should be another great test for the Lady Muleriders this early in the season. Yeah,
we talked about volleyball, which we'll get into here in a little bit, but challenging yourself in your early season non-conference schedule, that's something that Coach Rainbow appears to be doing with this slight Texan tournament that they're going to, taking on Tarleton State and Angelo State teams, obviously not in the conference, but regional teams, so it'll count towards regional rankings. And so, all the teams are starting to kind of position themselves with an eye towards postseason, even if it is here early on in the preseason. And we'll go ahead and we'll talk about volleyball team. They closed out their regular season this past week with their final conference game at Henderson State, and then the next day finished up the regular season with a match at Texas College. Talk us through those couple matches.
Well, they went to Henderson State, and of course, always a rowdy environment there, but they ended up getting the 4-set victory to ride their winning streak to 4 games. But even more interesting, right down the road at Ouachita Baptist, they also had a pretty important match there with Harding, and that had a lot of playoff implications there. And all signs pointed to Harding beating OBU, but OBU ended up upsetting Harding, which ended up pushing the Muleriders back to the 6th seed in the playoffs. So that happened on Thursday, and then you go on Friday, and we go and sweep Texas College to get on a 5-game winning streak heading into conference. And then Southeastern had their big game with Northwestern, and that also had playoff implications there, because if Southeastern would win, they would be the 3. If they lose, Harding would be the 3, who, of course, that's who the Lady Muleriders will play in the first round of the playoffs. Well, Northwestern took a 2-set lead over Southeastern, and all signs pointed to us playing Harding again. But Southeastern ended up coming back, winning in 5 sets. So now the Lady Muleriders are all set to play Southeastern in the first round of the GAC tournament, and that's the first game Thursday at noon.
Yeah, it's going to be some retribution on the minds of Coach Graham and the Lady Muleriders. They played Southeastern Oklahoma at home. They only played them once, so pretty much only played all the Oklahoma teams one time through conference play. It was a match that, going into it, I think they felt very confident going in. It was a very competitive match. Lady Muleriders came up short in that, and so they're kind of eyeing a little bit of revenge in that. And talking, you start looking at the seedings, and anything can happen in a tournament whenever you get into play. Because once you get in, seeds don't necessarily matter. It's really who you play at that time and the matchups that are in your favor. And I think just kind of looking at it, everybody kind of feels that that 6 seed against Southeastern Oklahoma is a better matchup than maybe some of the other potential opening round matchups that the Lady Mule Riders could have gotten. So even though you look at it, had a chance to be the 5 seed, some other things played out to where it didn't happen that way, things out of their control. So they fall down to the 6 seed, but that might not necessarily be a bad thing. Kind of give us a little bit of a preview going into this conference tournament. They're going a neutral site at Hot Springs. You mentioned they're the first match of that tournament starting this Thursday. And kind of give us a little bit of a preview in your eyes.
Yeah, well, actually, like you said, moving back to the 6th seed is not that bad of a position, because if you look towards the future, if they do win that first round game, they'll get that 2nd seed or the 7th seed if they upset, instead of getting that 1st seed, likely Arkansas Tech. So yeah, it's a much better situation in my mind, and I think Southeastern is a much better matchup for Southern Arkansas than Harding, even though they played them twice and they played them tough twice. But like you said, over here, when we played Southeastern, the first set we dominated. They made some sort of adjustment. It seemed like they were rolling a bunch of shots on us. But now Hannah Rice is much more accustomed to that libero position. I think she'll do a much better job there. But I think the key to this match is Amanda Monge. I mean, all season long, the Lady Mule Riders feed off of Amanda Monge, and this week she also had 20 kills against Henderson State, nearly matched a career high. But Monge has set herself up well for being the GAC Player of the Year. She's first in hitting percentage by 26 points. It's not even close. She's first in aces per set and second in kills per set and points per set. I mean, she's making a strong case for herself. But also, on the other end, if teams start eyeing in on Monge and focusing most of their blocks on Monge, then Taylor Ewan will have to respect that and also distribute the ball really well for the Lady Mule Riders to win a few games in the GAC tournament, and hopefully we'll see him playing in the finals there.
Yeah, and as you know, the Lady Mule Riders have been in the Great American Conference Tournament under Grimm each year. This will be the 2nd year at Hot Springs, and so they're used to it. It's a different atmosphere because it's a little more of an open space rather than the typical gyms and arenas within the Great American Conference that the teams have played in. And so, you know, from a visual aspect, you know, with some returners back from last year, some of the key players, I don't think that'll play as big of a factor as it may have done last year, just getting used to the surroundings. But it should be a great conference tournament. Looking forward to it again. It's starting this Thursday, go through Saturday with the championship game on Saturday at 2 p.m. That's in Hot Springs, Arkansas at Summit Arena. Lady Mule Riders, again, the 6th seed taking on Southeastern Oklahoma. The very first match of the tournament, that's noon on Thursday, and so we look forward to that. Be sure to check MuleriderAthletics.com for the full preview and all the live links there if you're not able to join the Lady Mule Rider volleyball team in Hot Springs. Speaking about conference championships, cross country, men's and women's had their championship this past Saturday. Both teams had a very good showing. Recap that for us.
Yeah, really a great showing all week for the Mule Riders. On the men's side, they finished 3rd out of 5 teams. Chris Wallace finished in the top 10 at 6th. From what I'm told, all of the runners that are the top 6 or 7 runners that finished in the GAC championships will compete at the next meet, at the regional meet. And on the women's side, Carly Langley won the individual title to win the runner of the year. She's been the story. I mean, she's been absolutely incredible. But the Lady Mule Riders ended up finishing 2nd. Harding just a little too much firepower on the front end. But it has to be good for the Lady Mule Riders to see Carly Langley finishing first, because of course when they go to regionals, in order to qualify for nationals or for the Division II championships, if you don't finish in the top 4 teams, then it has to be that you have to be in the top 3 individuals to qualify. So I think Carly Langley has set herself up well to finish in those top 3. But I guess it's all how she runs in Wayne, Nebraska coming up. But yeah, this week, of course, they ran at the same course the previous week. Most of the athletes ran a better time, which has to be good news for Coach Service, and I'm sure he's extremely proud of his team.
Yeah, you know, and you look at Langley's time, you know, all throughout this year, she's been, you know, dominating at the beginning of the race. Coach Service mentioned that she was undefeated in her races individually against some GAC opponents, and so she all year long has had a great year. But it was awesome to see her not only just win the individual title, but by how much she did, nearly a full minute in front of the 2nd place finisher. And so an overall very dominating performance by Langley, which is good to see. Virginia Nye right there. She's been there. Number 2 for the Lady Muleriders was there as well.
And also, I'd like to say this: the top 4 runners for the men, all underclassmen. So Coach Service has a bright future ahead of him with this program.
Yeah, so they are trending upwards, and so it's very good showing for both of those teams in a very competitive Great American Conference in terms of cross country at the top, and the Muleriders and Lady Muleriders right there along with those teams. And so that's great to see. Obviously, they're eyeing now the regional championships and hopefully get a couple of bursts, maybe some individual bursts into the D2 championships and going from there. So a great showing for the Lady Muleriders coming away. Second place finish, runners up, and the men finishing third. Finally for the week, we had the Murphy USA Classic football game in El Dorado. Actually wound up being a very good atmosphere, very good crowd. The home side for Southern Arkansas was filled. Henderson did a good job bringing some fans over as well. The tailgating, mule-gating rather, was a lot of fun beforehand. And then really, if you're a fan of college football for offensive reasons, this was a very fun game for you to watch. The two teams combined for 96 points, a little under 1,200 yards of total offense. So if you're an old-school defensive type person, you might have cringed and didn't have a lot of fun watching it. But a lot of offense going on, particularly in the air. Kevin Rogers for Henderson State, they're perennial All-American, threw for over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. But Cy Blackshire on the other side for the Muleriders, just under 400 yards passing, 398. He had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, so that was good to see him having a clean showing there in terms of the passing game. And then Aaron Johnson, a big day, 7 grabs, 152 yards. Zacharias Ware, another 100-yard receiving effort on 7 catches, 116, 1 touchdown. Is one of those games that you know what Henderson's going to try to do. They showed it early on that they're going to be able to move the ball. Muleriders trailed by 17 at halftime. You started to wonder, okay, where's this game going to go from here? Because at halftime, what adjustments are going to be made? Is Henderson still going to be able to pretty much have their way moving the ball? But credit to Southern Arkansas. They made some adjustments at halftime. Were able to shut down Henderson's offense a little bit. And then the Muleriders went on a run of their own. Eventually tying the game at 38 all. Henderson goes ahead in the fourth quarter with a field goal, but the Muleriders come back, answer it again with a field goal. Bradford Grems kicked 4 field goals in that game, all of them in the second half. So that was good to see. He tied the Great American Conference single game record for field goals. So that was very impressive, and he helped keep the Muleriders in the game. Obviously would have liked to have seen those field goals turned into touchdowns, but the bottom line was that they converted them into points. And so 6 of 6 in the red zone, able to score on some points there. And also, too, going back to the end of the first half, Muleriders came up with a big goal line stand. 6 seconds left, Henderson State called a timeout. They were on the 1-foot line, knocking on the doorsteps. And they, instead of going for the field goal to increase their lead, they went for the touchdown attempt, and the Mulerider defense stopped them. So that was a little bit of a momentum swing. And then in the fourth quarter, kind of late, Henderson, it was tied 41-41. Real short drive for the Reddies. They score to go ahead, but you're looking at it, okay, well now Southern Arkansas has a chance to go back and match it, only down 7. But unfortunately, just 2 plays into that drive, a forced fumble by Henderson State on Southern Arkansas. They recovered in Mulerider territory, and that gave the Reddies the ball back. They took advantage and scored on that possession, 14 points right there, and just with having to use up all 3 of their timeouts prior to that point, it was really a very steep uphill climb for the Muleriders, and they just weren't able to overcome that costly turnover at that point in the game. It's still a very good showing for Southern Arkansas. They fall to 4-5 on the year. 1 game left. It's another big rivalry game, the Battle of the Timberlands game against Arkansas Monticello at UAM. That's this upcoming Saturday at 3 o'clock at Monticello, the kickoff there. And the Muleriders, this will be the 3rd year for the Battle of the Timberlands. They've won the first 2 meetings of that, and so they'll want to keep that very nice trophy here in Magnolia, even though it's going to have to travel to Monticello for the game. Muleriders are trying to hold on to that and finish 500 on the year. And so looking to close out the year on a very positive note. It's been a lot of great statistical numbers. The wins and losses haven't necessarily reflected, I think, how well the team has played in some of the games. Really, it's just been some unfortunate things late. But the Muleriders are a very young team, so that's one of the positives looking ahead. And so that was the week that was in Mulerider Athletics. Looking forward to another exciting week in Mulerider Athletics, another men's basketball. will get going this week with their first exhibition game against Arkansas State. That's this Wednesday, 7:05 in Jonesboro. So looking forward to that. And then the following week, both the men's and women's will be going in their season for real. And so looking forward to that. Be sure to check MuleriderAthletics.com for all your live links and previews for all the events coming up at home and on the road. Jordan, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Dan.